Call to order a regular meeting of the Planning Commission. And fellas, can we get roll call?
Chairperson Bob McCool.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Lisa Ritchie.
Here.
Commissioners Phyllis Harden here, Jerry Malia,
Here.
Robert Momartz, Jason Reese,
Here.
Jim Sawtelle,
Here.
Anthony Stewart,
Here.
Steve Whitty,
Here.
Planner Stephen Williams,
Here.
Attorney Dan Harvey.
Here.
Okay.
All right, we've got a public comment on the consent agenda or non-agenda items. We'll have comment on the public hearing a little bit later, but if anybody has anything prior to that, take a minute to come up and talk to us. All right, seeing none, we'll move on to our consent agenda. If we just have the minutes from the March 20th meeting. Anybody have any changes or?
I've got a change. I believe in the minutes I'm recorded as voting yay for both the measures from our last meeting, and I believe I voted nay on one of them. The first one.
Okay.
So the minutes,
I will make sure.
the minutes don't reflect the correct events. I believe I voted no to the first measure.
So then it didn't.
No,
No.
No.
no, I'm pretty sure we had it right, but that would change the vote
So it not.
from 4-3 to 3-4.
Maybe it was the second then?
Maybe it was the second. I
There
don't know
were
if we
two
can-
no's.
No, there were only two no's
There
in
were
the
two
second.
no's in
No's.
this. 'Cause
Yeah,
I
that was
voted
you and
yes
I,
on
right?
this.
You and I were the only ones who voted
Yeah.
no in the second.
Okay. Because I remember deciding that before the vote. So I don't know, maybe we can go back and look at the
Okay.
videotape?
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
good. That'd be important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I will do that.
Let's see, so do we vote on the minutes then, or do we wait
Do
until
we
that's
want to?
been verified?
I think we probably should wait and verify
I think
how
so.
that vote.
Okay.
Yeah, till the next meeting.
All right,
Okay.
do we need to do a motion to do that, or just table it?
Yeah, I mean, I would make a motion.
Okay. Good. I'll make a motion to table the minutes till our next meeting, till we have a chance
Okay.
to review the video.
Second.
Have a second by Commissioner Whitty. All in favor? It's unanimous. Okay, so next we have a public hearing and adoption of a resolution recommending approval of a final plat for Block 14, a final plat for Block 26, a final development plan 4 for Block 14, and a final development plan 5 for a portion of Block 26 for the Superior Town Center. I'll open the public hearing. Do we have proof of publication?
Yes, I have proof of publication.
Excellent. And does staff have a presentation for us?
No, I do. Stephen Williams, town staff. Tonight's development application involves both final subdivision plats as well as final development plans for blocks 14 and 26 of the Superior Town Center. The images shown here are of each of the two product types that Thrive is proposing. Their 3-story stacked flat product is shown on top, and their 2-story courtyard design is illustrated below. Chase Mullen, our 3D imaging consultant, is here to walk Planning Commission through the 3D massing model that he's created after my presentation. The applicant, Jay Garcia of Thrive Homes, as well as his design consultants, are also here with a presentation of their own that'll follow Chase's fly-through. The subject property is located within Planning Area 3 of the town center. As illustrated, blocks 14 and 26 lie along each side of Discovery Parkway as it comes south into the town center. Block 14 lies south of Promenade Drive between Village Greenway and Central Parkway. The proposed development area within Block 26 lies along Discovery Parkway just south of that right-of-way. The area reflected in yellow within this land use map illustrates the PD3 designation for residential, which includes, so that's the allowance for this development, which includes Block 14 and 26. The land use map from PDA 3 also clarifies that the platting portion of this application was anticipated during that 2016 update, as streets 9 and 10 were approved to be added as public rights-of-way in order to accommodate the development of blocks 26 and 27. As reflected in their context site plan on the right, Thrive is only proposing to develop the northern half of Block 26 at this time, in addition to all of Block 14. The associated plat for Block 26 has been confined to platting the right-of-way for Central Park Circle, which is the name that's been applied to Streets 9 and 10. The remainder of Block 26 and all of Block 27 will require additional subdivision plat or plats, which will be processed with an application for the development within these portions or these blocks. The subdivision request for Lot 1, Block 14 would divide this 1.47 acre block into 32 developable lots comprising 1.5 acres and 3 outlots comprising 0.42 acres. The subdivision request for Block 26 is presently Super Lot 4, which encompasses a 5.78 acre area. They're proposing to divide a smaller portion of that into 19 developable lots covering 0.66 acres, as well as 4 outlots covering nearly half an acre, or just over half an acre, excuse me. The 2 super lots that will remain will be blocks 26 and the remaining portion of block 26 and all of block 27. The request for block 14 would yield a density of 21.75 dwelling units an acre. As illustrated, lot sizes range from 784 square feet to 3,067 square feet. The larger lots are sited along Promenade Drive and will front Village Green Park to the north. That will house Thrive's courtyard units. The smaller lots to the south will accommodate Thrive's stacked flat, and they are aligned to face northwest or southeast to either the adjacent public right-of-way or to the internal path that's illustrated in blue as Outlot C. The proposed replat would create 3 privately owned lanes, Meridian Lane running parallel with Promenade Drive, as well as Anticline Lane and Canal Lane, which parallel Village Greenway and Central Parkway. All of these outlots are proposed to be within, or all of these lanes are proposed to be within Outlot B, which is shown in gray. The other 2 outlots, which I mentioned the one in blue already, the one in green is Outlot A. Their primary purpose is to provide a pedestrian connection through this block. The subdivision plat for block 26 proposes to divide Super Lot 4A into blocks 26 and 27, respectively, like on each side of the right-of-way that's proposed. The northeastern half of block 26 is proposed to be divided into lots 1 through 19 and outlots A through D to allow for Thrive's development. The total density of this development would be 16.23 acres, and lot sizes would range from 1,040 square feet to 1,906 square feet. Each of the 19 outlots or lots proposed would front Discovery Parkway and be served by the private alley to the back, which is titled Incline Lane. The other outlots shown in green are on each building corner and then kind of centrally located again to provide a pedestrian connection to Discovery Parkway. The FDP cover sheet includes the required submittal components, including project title, legal description, vicinity map, and signature blocks, as well as the sheet index. It also includes several tables that outline various development components. The site data table, enlarged on the right, clarifies the land use distribution and the proposed setbacks and building heights. Both housing types as proposed will fall within the 32-foot height maximum. The courtyard model illustrated on the bottom left will be roughly 27 feet in height and 2 stories above grade with a basement. The stacked flat product illustrated on the top right is 3 floors in height and will stand 31 feet 7 inches tall. Setbacks for this area of the town center apply to distances from public right-of-ways. Generally 2 feet to 8 feet is the requirement, except along Promenade, where a 0 to 15-foot setback is the standard. Thrive is requesting a few setback and height exceptions, which will be discussed in relation to the site plans and building elevations sheets that we'll get to shortly. Parking tables were also included on this cover sheet to clarify both the number of private garage spaces and guest parking spaces for each development block. Both product types proposed have a 2-bedroom unit with a loft area. 1.5 parking spaces are required for 2-bedroom units within the town center. For the 32 residential units proposed within Block 14, 60 garage spaces and 4 guest parking spaces are proposed. This is in relation to a 48 private parking space and 4 guest parking space requirements, so it exceeds the standard. For Block 26, 37 parking spaces, private parking spaces are proposed, and 6 additional guest parking spaces. And the requirement for this many units would stipulate 29 private spaces and 2 guest parking spaces. So for both blocks, they exceed their parking requirements. Context site plan is provided to illustrate the broader context of how the 2 blocks relate to one another as well as to their surrounding area. Vehicle access to these blocks would originate either from Main Street off McCaslin through the town center, or off of Discovery is a little bit more of a direct access to this area of Planning Area 3. Street and infrastructure FDP approvals to date include all of the adjacent residential or adjacent roads. As illustrated on this plat sheet, vehicle access to Block 14 would come off of either Village Greenway or Central Parkway in these locations, or of one of 2 locations off of Discovery Parkway. And then access from or to Block 26 would come off of the Central Park Circle proposed in these 2 locations. The plan sheet also illustrates the pedestrian and ADA access routes that have been incorporated into the design. For Block 14, accessible pedestrian routes encircle the property and have been accommodated within the central connection between or over Outlot C and Outlot A. For Block 26, it's just kind of circumnavigating the site. This outlot, as well as all of the residences along Discovery Parkway, rely on stairs to get up to them. So this route is there for pedestrians, but it's not ADA accessible. The site plan for Block 24 illustrates the development proposed in greater detail, clarifying where the 2 different residential product types would be sited and their associated building footprints. Thrive's courtyards, again, are proposed to be along Promenade Drive and front Village Green Park. These larger units are designed in 4-unit clusters with wider end units. The courtyards are incorporated on each front unit, which we'll see in the elevations, and end units feature larger courtyards on the edges, and the interior units include courtyards internally. The plan sheet illustrates that patio amenities for these lots begin 2 feet from the front lot line, with building facade setback an additional 5 feet. Thrive's stacked flat units are proposed south of Meridian and oriented to face either northwest or southeast. This product is designed in a 3-unit building cluster with 4 rows of buildings. 22 of the 24 stacked flats are sited to either front Village Greenway or Central Parkway. The other 12 units will face one another and be separated by that outlot C that was discussed. Although parcel lines will only be separated by this 5-foot wide outlot, the applicant provided a cross-section within their narrative of this pedestrian corridor to better illustrate the building separations that have been afforded. So that's shown here, and this map's just kind of been included for context. So the 5-foot outlot separates the property lines, but an additional 5 feet 6 inches of landscape space is afforded on each side, and that separates the 2 units by a minimum of 16 feet, but 25 feet actually separates their 3rd-story facades, and as much as 33 feet 9 inches actually separates their first 2 floors within this area. Thrive's stacked flat product, which abuts Village Greenway and Central Parkway, as well as Discovery Parkway, is subject to the 2-foot to 8-foot right-of-way setback. There are lots that front Central Parkway are requesting a minor deviation to this setback for an additional 6 inches, and this is to accommodate an electric easement that runs along that edge of the block. So they just need an additional 6 inches to get out of that easement. They'll also use that to help kind of take up some of the grade to get up to their building elevations for those lots. Lot widths within the stacked flat range from 16 feet 5 inches to 27.5 feet. Only 4 of these units are proposed at the 16.5-foot width. which will feature one-car garages. The other 20 townhomes, as well as all Thrive's courtyard product, will include two-car garages. The design of the private drives on Outlot B was based largely on fire access requirements, which require a 26-foot wide paved access, as well as 32 feet of building separation on those alleys. The site plan sheet for Block 26 is shown here. It relates the same information that I just discussed for Block 14. Thrive is only proposing their smaller stacked flat units within this portion of Block 26. The plan sheet illustrates that the 19 units would be accommodated within 5 buildings, 2 with 3 townhome units, 2 with 4 townhome units, and then 1 with 5. Each building is designed to face northeast and front Discovery Parkway. Front setbacks are proposed to range from 16 feet to 24 feet 5 inches. The front setback standard for this area, again, is also the 2 feet to 8 feet. An exception is being requested for this portion of Block 26 to account for an elevation variation between where Discovery Parkway, the right-of-way was built, and where the foundation grades are for their buildings. A series of stairs will be required to access each of these units. Staff has no concerns about this exception request, which was brought up at their concept plan meeting. And we've also worked with the applicant to assure that the front yards afforded within these lots have been appropriately designed. Lot widths within Block 26 range from 16.5 feet to 30 feet. Only one unit along Discovery Parkway is proposed with the 16.5 foot width, which again will include a one-car garage. The other 18 townhomes will have 2-car garages. Plan sheet 10 illustrates the front right side elevations of Thrive's 4-unit courtyard product. As illustrated, this 2-story building would be roughly 27 feet tall. The depth of the building measures 66 feet, and the building's length is 108 feet. The right side elevation clarifies that the rear of the building will be 1 story in height. That will accommodate the garages. The elevation also helps to illustrate the varied roof lines and facade articulation that have been incorporated into this design. The front elevation clarifies how the end units are distinguished from their interior courtyard product. Gable roof pitches define the interior units, while shed roof angles characterize the end units. As illustrated, the second floor shed roofs are also designed to accommodate solar panels. Stone has been incorporated around the building entries of the interior homes and is used to define the first 4 corners of each building as well. Front building entrances in each courtyard product have also been incorporated. The left side elevation here is virtually a mirror image of the right. The only difference really is the utilities that are shown on each side elevation. On one end of each building, they'll cluster their gas utilities. On the other, they'll cluster their electric utilities for each of the 4-plex buildings. The roof elevation on the left, which will also face south, is shown to incorporate their solar panels as well on their black and white elevation. The rear elevations illustrate that additional solar panels will be included on the interior units, and they also clarify how you get access to those interior courtyards, which is through a break between the 2 interior garages. The 2 elevation plans provided for Thrive's stacked flat product reflect a 3-unit building cluster. For Block 14, only 3-unit townhomes are proposed, but within Block 26, Thrive's also proposing 4 and 5 unit buildings. Thrive's 3-story townhome would stand roughly 38 or 31 feet, 8 inches in height, and have a depth of 40 feet and span roughly 60 feet in length in the arrangement shown. The front building elevation clarifies the mix of colors and materials proposed. Columns have also been incorporated into this design, stone columns, excuse me. They help define the building corners and also used to separate internal units from external units. Stone has been included on the right side elevation as well. The second floor of this elevation features a bay window. Like the courtyard product, Thrive's stacked flat includes 3 distinct composite siding finishes, a narrow and a wide, horizontal lap siding, as well as a composite panel board siding. As detailed in the applicant's project narrative, Thrive would prefer to design their stacked flat product at a taller height of 35 feet 2 inches. This would require, this design would allow for an enhanced solar exposure and provide each level of their 3-story product to have a more generous and welcome floor-to-ceiling separation. This request would require a minor 3-foot 2-inch exception from the 32-foot height restriction that applies to blocks 14 and 26, but their development would still be compliant with the applicable view shed restriction from Tract H. The visual impact of this allowance would be minimal from the exterior, but would result in a distinctly more spacious and marketable product from building interiors. This slide illustrates the rear and left side elevations of Thrive's stacked flat products. Like their courtyard design, Thrive's side elevations for their stacked flats are virtually identical. The rear elevations illustrate that stone columns would define each building corner. And the center townhome product illustrated features their one-car garage model. Variations in the building materials help define one unit from another, as well as variations in color. Solar panels are not reflected on this elevation, but depending upon the orientation of the units, some stacked flats will have solar panels visible from building fronts, and some will have them visible from the rear facades. Staff has worked with the applicant to provide variation in wall planes on each of their elevations, and those are shown kind of here and here. But Thrive has also clarified that each protrusion runs counter to their company goal of maximizing their energy efficiency of their products. So the proposal reflects the balance that was struck between the aesthetic appearance that staff's concerned about and the energy efficiency that Thrive strives for. Thrive's color matrix shown here reflects a mix of the four color schemes that will be employed. This color scheme includes blue, purple, and brown hues within the primary gray color schemes for the composite siding, and 4 bright colors at the bottom here that will accent the entry doors. This plan sheet also best illustrates the stacked stone material and that it will be employed. It's Arctic white and an Arcadia gray. The landscape plan shown here for both blocks illustrates the proposed landscaping within the defined area. The applicant has indicated a desire to expand on the design guideline plant list with additional plant varieties to better respond to the specific site conditions, such as shade and tighter planting areas. A detailed narrative of each of their exception requests was provided by the applicant and reviewed by staff. In short, staff finds a landscape plan to meet the overarching streetscape and landscape goals of the STC, which require that plant choices be attractive and sustainable materials and support a vibrant and active public environment. Staff also finds the proposal will provide year-round interest in both form and color. So Thrive also provided 2 kind of detail sheets, one of which is shown here. This detail clarifies the stairs and the courtyards that are designed along Discovery Parkway within Block 26, and these are some other finish elements within those patio elements that have been incorporated. And this is all of their alleys, like Block 13, are designed to be built with concrete, and their pedestrian crossings will be accented by a stamped colored concrete shown there. Oh, went the wrong way. And then the other site amenities are shown here. They're consistent with what we've seen elsewhere in the town center. Most of these are public amenities, with the exception of the fenced courtyard detail and the railing detail, which will be done on private property. So staff is recommending approval of this application according to the conditions outlined here. As you know, should PC have any specific conditions to relate, they can be added to this list. As noted in this presentation, Thrive is requesting a handful of exception requests to both setback and height. PC can respond to these requests directly through conditions or by directing staff to include PC's position on these issues through staff's written summary of this meeting that will be updated for the town board. That concludes my presentation. We will turn it over to the more exciting stuff.
All right, thank you, Stephen. Before we go on, though, we have questions for staff at this point in this presentation. Okay.
All right.
Is this our 3D? Or, okay.
Good evening, Chase Mullen with MIG. I'll just do a kind of quick flyover and then ask for kind of specific direction about views you guys would like. Just to help orient you, so this is block 26 here, and then this is 14 over here. Any specific direction?
Can you continue on, Chase, to the, I guess, the far east end, of those homes there? I just wanted to see how what the view shed looks like from that.
Yeah.
angle.
Thank you, Commissioner Sawtelle. Yeah, look back toward the west there.
Yeah. And then can you focus down toward the proposed development there?
Kind of just back properties here.
So is that a view basically 6 feet off the ground?
Correct.
And that's along the buffer zone there.
Yeah.
And these are modeled at the 31.8 height?
Correct.
Okay.
So it's the 31.8 height, and they're asking for an exception to 35, 35 something, 35.2.
Stephen did ask that I include some of the kind of thinking about some of the future stuff that's going to start to infill around here as well for this. Oops, wrong button. So these are some what's anticipated to come through. Then they're modeled after the same Remington models that are kind of here on the end.
But they're at the 32-foot height.
Correct.
Correct, okay.
So those are at 32. Those are at 32. What is the elevation gain just in the ground from
On the south side of Central Park Circle.
Yes.
Does that grade
Yes.
lower?
We don't have the
Not sure
final
on the grade on
grading
that.
yet
Okay.
for kind of the 27 area.
Okay.
But I did absorb some of the grading from the road. So it's close.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Central Park Circle's higher in elevation than those adjacent properties to the under consideration tonight. I'm just wondering, I can't
So
remember if the grade.
This all slopes
Right.
down to the north, and I'm assuming this does too. They had to pick up, and I don't know whether or not Jim Brostovich is the one that's working on the application. He's the civil working on the application for Remington, which will come in with an application for blocks 26 and 27 later this year.
Okay.
My understanding is that that grade's higher south of Central Parkway,
Right.
Okay.
so, or Central Park Circle, excuse me. They've clarified, I guess the other piece to that is they've clarified that part of, like, that they're planning on coming forward with a front-loaded product off of Central Park Way
Mhm.
because they can't share that alley due to the grades.
Mhm.
So a lot of that grade change between the south side of Central Parkway and the north side, as well as what's on Discovery, is absorbed within the center of Block 26.
Anything additional?
So would you be able to put the proposed development back in and then give us that same view from the east and south that we had before from the backyards of those homes?
Yeah. I'll start on this end.
Okay.
Going up here a little bit.
Oh, that's perfect, thank you.
Mhm.
We'll keep Chase here just because we like his company. So if you guys have any other questions for him, we can follow up if you guys want to move to the applicant's presentation.
Any more questions?
I'll have questions for staff, but I'd like to hear that.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Sure.
Do we have a copy?
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Jay Garcia. Excited to be here on behalf of Thrive Home Builders and the entire design team that's been involved with the downtown Superior application that Stephen did a great job of presenting. I wanted to start off by saying, I was telling my boss today, I didn't realize this, but I was in front of you all, or whoever was able to attend back in July, and I had the same exact shirt on that evening. So I wanted to begin by assuring everyone that I do own different shirts. Apparently I like this one, and hopefully it's good luck this evening. But seriously though, I wanted to just kind of launch into some of the stuff that I did talk about. Actually, my boss Kevin spoke about earlier last summer. Just as kind of a refresher for those of us, I mean, that was a long time ago, and maybe not everybody was able to attend, but leading into who Thrive is and kind of our approach to home building, because we're not the typical home builder. And I know that every home builder would say that, but we're going to try and prove exactly that. So really our three legs of the stool, so to speak, are energy efficiency, healthy homes, and local. So we pride ourselves as being considered an innovator in energy efficient design. but we also have really begun to embark upon how we can brand and market what we put into the health of the home, both with the indoor air quality, water quality, and also the building materials themselves. And then local, I mean, I think that ties directly into why we're here today. We don't want to be a large national home builder. That's just not who we are. We're from Colorado, been here for 25 years. I've been with the company going on a little bit less than 4 years now. But you know, we want to kind of be the small niche builder, and I think that ties in well with the downtown Superior community as well as the town of Superior as a whole. So this is a list of awards and recognition that we presented back in July, and I think Kevin made the point that, you know, we're not trying to show off or impress you. It's more just kind of showing that you know, there is that sort of third-party verification out there, and it's both local, it's regional, and it's on the national level too, not just the National Association of Home Builders, but, you know, the Department of Energy and the EPA has acknowledged us for the things that we put into the home itself. So since we actually last saw you in July, we won 2 more grand awards from the Department of Energy for innovation in housing. We've won it the past 5 years in a row, but this is the first time we actually entered into 2 of the 4 categories, and we won them both. So we now have 6 awards. And then the other really exciting award is that Professional Builder Magazine named us as Builder of the Year in the entire nation. So that was not something that we actually applied for. We weren't trying to get this. They just kind of came out and told us, you guys are the Builder of the Year in the entire nation. So what does that really mean, and how does that apply to this community? I mean, I think that we're really geared towards energy efficiency, sustainable power and energy, healthy homes and cleaner air, and then what we focus on, what our pride is the science of building. So what does that translate to here in downtown Superior? It's going to be, you know, the sustainability that we're able to implement, high design, urban density, and walkability. And you know, why downtown Superior? I think it kind of goes without saying, but it warrants mentioning. Just the focus on environmental stewardship being within the town of Superior, but also kind of trying to be that cutting edge of innovation as well. And then also the healthy living and how that integrates into and around the community itself. So, you know, we're just really excited to be a part of the Downtown Superior project. It's cool to go out there now and just see how it's started to take shape even since last July. And, you know, mentioned this last time, but downtown Superior, the town of Superior in general, being 2017 best place to live in Colorado, as labeled by Niche. And what I think is really cool is that the town of Superior has these goals out there for sustainability, for environmental stewardship. You know, not every municipality or jurisdiction is willing to just put this out there like that and have their goals labeled on the website itself, and have a robust green building program. You know, have these initiatives and programs that they're seeking to launch to be acknowledged as being a solar-friendly community. To have these really cool new programs that we're extremely jazzed about, just because it's directly in line with who we are, and it aligns directly with our mission and our goals and our objectives. And we'd like to pass, you know, opportunities like this off to our home buyer and make that a benefit for them as well, with some of these, you know, low interest financing opportunities, reduction in energy efficiency upgrade, and solar rebates. And then it is, you know, a town board goal for 2017 to support the environmental sustainability. And, you know, we're just very excited that we actually have an opportunity as sort of this niche builder that's right in our wheelhouse. I mean, we are really jazzed to be able to help the town achieve those goals. So since we last saw you guys, we've been very busy in designing these homes, and the current design is expected to achieve EPA Energy Star for homes, EPA Indoor Air Plus, U.S. Department of Energy Net Zero Energy Ready certification, and then all of these homes will be LEED certified. There's some stipulation, some speculation that they might go beyond certification. That really kind of depends on whether or not we choose to pursue those, silver or even gold certifications, but they will definitely be LEED certified, and that's been verified by the USGBC, Green Building Council. So how do we achieve that? I mean, it's the super insulated thick walls, the double 2x4 walls. We have tankless hot water heaters with learning recirculating pumps. We have high performance carrier, 92% efficient gas furnace, low E double glazed windows, roof orientations for improved solar energy, and 100% LED lighting. So this is very approximate, and I have to throw out the disclaimer, but how we have these currently designed in the energy modeling softwares that we've run them through the science of building technology, we believe that these homes will score 32 or less on the HERS rating score, so I'll talk about that a little bit more here in a moment. Have over 20% reduction in energy usage as compared to the 2015 building code, which is the latest and greatest building code. Have actual negative CO2 emissions with the solar, over $700 a year energy savings versus existing U.S. homes, and then the average monthly heating and cooling cost of less than 15. A big disclaimer on that, but we think that it's actually going to be lower than that, but we just want to, obviously assess the fact that this is still in the design phase. We want to see how it ends up being built, but it's pretty accurate software, so we're excited about it. This is the HERS rating score, and we've kind of made it graphic just to kind of illustrate the idea here. I don't know if there are any Masters fans in the house, but with the Masters coming up here, the lower the score, just like golf, the better. So up here, the 130 that's kind of at the top of the chart there, that's a typical existing like Denver resale home. This is the typical new home that's just built to code, so just the bare minimum and not be breaking the law. This is an Energy Star home, which we plan to meet and surpass. And then this is where we're going to end up, right in that 30 range. This is a typical Thrive Home Builder zero energy ready home, which these are slated to become. So that's kind of the background on the design aspect. I wanted to go into the site design. Stephen did a great job of kind of describing the orientation and where we're located here within the community. Here's a little bit more gussied up site plan that we just finished up today. Again, it shows the two-story, let's see if I can get this to work. So these are the two-story attached product courtyard homes oriented with some private outdoor living space on the end units towards the front, main floor master units on these end units. And then these are some interior private courtyards that are oriented more internal to the fourplex itself. Those are two-story with a basement. And then, as Stephen alluded to, these other sort of darker orange colored units are the three-story stacked flats. We've been calling them the stacked townhomes, but I actually like the stacked flats. It might have a future in marketing, Stephen, because it's kind of a catchy term there. But anyways, he talked about the product mix already. I guess one thing that we could point out is that the mail kiosks are oriented kind of centrally located within the blocks to provide access, but also kind of keep them away from the public eye, internally located, kind of be screened from public view as well. Stephen did talk about the parking as well, so I don't necessarily need to go into the details of that, but this is an exhibit that just kind of shows the actual garage parking and then the guest parking off street, which we'll animate in here in a second. So 97 total garage spaces and 10 off-street guest parking spaces. These are the areas that have been designed and allocated and designated for snow storage within the blocks themselves. This is kind of the overall site data table, and I'm highlighting here at the bottom the setbacks in the areas where we're actually going to be requesting additional setbacks. Again, this area along here, there's a high voltage utility easement, a lot of energy going along that area there, so we just wanted to kind of set back an additional 6 feet just for an offset of that easement in particular. There is also an easement here, so it's that same easement. It kind of takes a turn here, so it's that same 8-foot wide easement. But this is the area that we were referring to that has significant existing topography and ultimate grading build out that will really kind of allow us, here's an example of the typical setback from Discovery Parkway. But it gives us this opportunity to kind of step down, so we have these terraced retaining walls that then transition down to the street right of way and tree lawn. And as Stephen alluded to, it gives us this real cool opportunity to kind of extend the private outdoor living space for those units that front onto Discovery Parkway, have sort of a fenced-in location where Fido can use the restroom, or you can kind of program in some more active outdoor living for yourself. And we took what was sort of a site constraint and turned it into a design opportunity, and we're very excited about how that's going to turn out. I think that Chase's fly-through gave a good concept of it as well. This is just kind of a general rendering that the civil engineer and landscape architect were able to come up with to give kind of a feel for that area. And then Stephen also kind of showed this section here. So, just understanding that it is based off of, design standards for the width of the sidewalk, and that section cut was provided to kind of give an idea for just the sort of volume of open space that you have in that area. And then these are just some of the images of other similar type products. This is a much older, generation of this sort of stacked townhome flat, but it gives you an idea for how it does feel open as you travel through with that 5-foot sidewalk. So that's the site design. Now I'll transition over to the architectural design. We began this process even before we talked to you last July, and investigated, delved into the design guidelines, took a look at the different product types. As you may recall, we came and presented how this sort of monoslope roof pitch offered us that sort of optimal solar orientation, which really gave us an opportunity to maximize the area of sort of solar photovoltaic. And we presented these massing models that kind of showed that. They range from about 38 to 39, almost 40 feet in height. And then we kind of showed you that there were these different alternatives based on that maximum height of 32 feet. And what we wanted to show you today is that we did hear you, and that we are progressing with what we heard that evening and what we've kind of heard since then. We looked at various different product types. As far as the height goes, we looked at the flat roof option. The flat roof is not ideal for a number of different reasons, the least of which is not the fact that it is not allowed by the guidelines. We don't think that it's very aesthetic. And I just don't think that we agree that it really doesn't fit in with the sort of architectural feel that's been established within downtown Superior. And this is the 31-foot, 8-inch building height with the gabled roof, which we do believe is kind of harmonious and in sync with what's going on with the rest of the community, and it kind of ties in with the surrounding area as well as within downtown Superior. But as Stephen alluded to, there's just significant sacrifices that are made within the interior of the home because of these sort of squashed down roof heights and floor plate heights. And so what we've done is we've very carefully, down to the inch, kind of designed what we think would be a wonderful alternative that's still within the 10% administrative relief requirement. And it really has all these benefits and is really kind of imperceptible when you hold them side by side with that 35-foot, 2-inch building height. So this is when we enlisted the services of God and Sudik Architects, and they're an award-winning design firm. They probably didn't know that I was going to do this, so hopefully I can embarrass them a little bit, but they are both nationally and regionally recognized for their excellence in design. And I put this up there because we really do, again, align with this sort of mission and vision to design and bring to reality exceptional and unique residential communities that balance practical restraints and innovative ideas. And so this is just straight from their website dating back to 2000. You can click on any one of these tabs and you can see just this year they've only got one award so far. These are all the awards that they won last year and the year before. So I'll only go back 3 years, but it kind of shows that we selected them carefully to kind of produce for us this what we think is a really genuine design. It's beautiful, but it's really the composition of the simple materials that really come together and articulated well, and really kind of break up that massing and provide for a very livable floor plan at the same time. So this is a view of Block 14, kind of looking towards the south. This is looking again at Block 14, kind of at an angle. That's the two-story attached townhome, the courtyard unit with the basement. That's the end unit with the main floor master right there. It's being shown. And then this is kind of looking back towards the back of that home, so you can kind of see how the articulation wraps around the edge here and then ties into the adjacent structure. Another bird's eye view here. And then these were just some of the stills that Chase was able to share with us that we thought kind of showed a good example of the massing with its surrounding context. And just kind of the streetscape, kind of that, how we've been able to integrate that topography as a design opportunity. This is the color and materials board. We actually have samples of the colors and materials here tonight to present to you all. And then the view shed, which, this is kind of the worst case scenario looking back over the community, and it illustrates here that view shed as dimension. It's a good 20 feet below where that view shed is measured from. So we thought that was important. This was shown, so you can kind of see here the orientation of the future massing that will be the Remington front-loaded product, and how we kind of tie into that area. So that this is from the last time. This would be a gabled roof in these two locations, but it gives a good idea for the concept. So why 35'2" in height? I mean, basically what it comes down to, probably the biggest thing, is that home buyers just the market expects a certain floor plate and ceiling height, and it also allows for a lot more natural light to enter into the home, which, I mean, is really kind of critical for our open floor plan concept, which, we can go into more detail about here, but the higher ceilings really do enhance that open floor plan. It does improve the aesthetics. It allows for larger windows on the exterior, taller doors, and by increasing the roof pitch, it just gives it a little bit more residential character as well. One of the big things, one of the big benefits, is with an 8-foot garage door, we're able to accommodate, most, if not all, vehicles, including ones with roof racks, and that allows them to stay off the street, right? I mean, if we were to shrink that first floor plate and it would require a 7-foot garage door, a lot of vehicles just won't fit into that size of a garage. The additional capacity within the garage allows for more storage as well. And then I referenced this before, the roof pitch not only increases the energy efficiency for the photovoltaic, the solar panels, but it also kind of adds that residential design character. And then ultimately, as far as the buildability and the warranty issue and just the construction defect liability that's out there, it really facilitates better drainage for that roof as well, going from a 2 to 12 pitch just to a 3 to 12 pitch. And then, as I alluded to before, it is still within that 10% administrative relief that's built in. So we did that specifically. I mean, that was not an accident. We wanted to make sure that we were able to follow the rules. And then ultimately, big picture, I think as Chase was kind of able to allude to, it's still below that view shed, and it also ties into the surrounding community. So here are some images just of the interior that kind of give you an idea of like how that affects the openness of the floor plan, the volume of space, the light that is allowed into the interior. And if you can just kind of imagine, shrinking that floor plate height by a foot or more, it just really starts to affect the livability that these home buyers and homeowners and future community members would be able to experience. So with all that, I just want to say thank you. Stephen, you've been great to work with. That presentation was awesome. Chase, that was an incredible fly-through. I wish 9-year-old version of Jay could have seen that back in the day because he would have go in bonkers, but that was really cool to be able to see that kind of fly around. So at that point, I'd just like to open it up to questions and see what we can answer for you guys.
Anybody want to start? Questions for applicant or staff?
question related to height. I noticed that you came up with a new definition of height on the FDP, different than what's in the municipal code. There's a note, I guess, regarding how height is measured on the FDP,
Okay.
on the elevation sheets. Understanding like you need to establish different heights because you've got separate units if the grade is changing over time, right? Rather than the traditional way you measure it with kind of an average grade around the perimeter of the property. Do you feel like, so they're measuring it sounds like you're measuring it from the top of foundation.
Correct.
That's equivalent to, what is the difference, I guess, between top of foundation and average grade? Are we seeing an honest representation of what the height will really feel like?
Sure.
How much is the, you understand what I'm asking?
I do, absolutely, and that's a great question. That's a very astute question. When we were trying to evaluate this at the beginning, we looked up the definition and we talked to Stephen about it, and ultimately, in order to be consistent with what the other builders are doing, we determined how they were measuring it so that one person's apple would be the same height as another, at least measurable apples to apples. And that's how they were doing it. That's how the other two builders within the community had measured it, was from the top of foundation to the highest point. It effectively ends up being about an additional 8 inches or so, depending on the grade. That was the other thing, is that, the grade you've seen, the topography is, in some cases it varies drastically around the perimeter of the building. So in order to kind of measure to a consistent location, that's how we elected to also maintain consistency in the community.
So essentially, like your 31.2 maybe average is actually at 32 feet, and then if you go up higher, we may be looking at just to be clear, I guess, just to,
Right.
to represent it honestly, I think, like what the actual height would feel like.
Sure.
I guess is all I just want to kind of clarify.
Yeah, and we can definitely go into, and it's at the level of detail now where we can say from grade, obviously with some degree of variation,
Right.
exactly what that height would be. But yeah, about 8 to 12 inches is probably a good sort of rule of thumb to gauge on.
So the last conversation I think we had on this was that we didn't have that detail yet on the grade. And so they went with what they knew was more of a certainty, which was there. But we should go back and revisit that. It's something that hasn't been talked about since the initial discussion when they first submitted. So, and that was back in, like, we gave comments back in December or something.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, they are working closer to having final grades and construction drawings, and that's where that information is known. So we didn't, I guess I wouldn't have anticipated it being, up to 8 inches of difference, but I also don't know that if we took an average over everything because of how much topography is out here, that we'd have that much of a difference. So, but we can revisit it for sure. It's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm curious, is staff supporting the request for additional height?
We are. I mean, I don't think that, we don't get a lot of the 3D detail until, the day of or the day before, so it's hard to kind of get that context in. But I don't think that, it doesn't break the plane, which was really what kind of established that. And then it's significantly under. I think that's the difference that everyone needs to understand, is that although a 32-foot height limit was set, that's, as Chase's model can actually show as well, it's like 20 feet under what that BSA, which was from way back when the annexation came in. And I also think that that was the context that we wanted to see, kind of just on the, based on the code and the standard. But we also wanted to see, like, because this one is further north than those products that are south, and we didn't do a full model because we have, parcels further east as well that will develop at that 32-foot height. I don't know that Thrive's homes are going to actually be seen once this hits build out. So I'm sure they'll have an impact now, and they will be seen now, but I don't know that, from 200 feet away or 150 feet away, you're going to notice 3 feet of height difference. So I think they've made a compelling argument about just the benefit of their product, that, they're used to building at a taller floor plate to ceiling height differential, and they're used to actually scoring really, really well, and we're probably hindering that a little bit by squishing them down, but they knew that when they came in, that that the height thing was gonna be a question. So they worked really hard to come up with something that they haven't done before, which is a testament to their commitment to build here, at a height that's at least 4 feet shorter than what their previous product of this type was, so.
I just had one point of clarification that I needed, and it was regarding the parking. Mr. Garcia, you said that, well, let's move over this because Stevens addressed that pretty much. And I see on the chart that there seems to be sufficient parking, but I'm a little bit confused by all the numbers. I saw one set of numbers up here and then another set of numbers on the sheet that I have, and just wanted some clarification in number of spaces, how they're allocated again, and number of handicapped spaces.
Okay. So, let's see. Yeah, and I didn't mean to just breeze past that. I think I was more just in the interest of time. I didn't want to dwell on anything, but absolutely. So if we go here.
Yeah, that's the chart that I'm referring to.
Okay, so this shows, so of the 32 units proposed, as Stephen indicated, 1.5 spaces per unit for the 2-bedroom units. These are all 2-bedroom units, some with loft. And so the spaces required by those 48, and then the 19 units, all 2 bedrooms have 29 spaces. The guest spaces per unit is 0.1, and so that turns into 4. It's 3.2, but it ends up being, and then 1.9, so we just round up to become 4 and 2. This was what we're actually providing, and that's what's illustrated in the next exhibit. So there's internal private garage parking, 60 spaces on block 14, and then 4 guest spaces. And then there are 37 internal garage parking spaces on block 26, and 6 visitor spaces. So this illustration shows the individual 2-car garages. There are 5 units that actually have what we call, it's an oversized 1-car garage. We market it as a 1.5-car garage, but because it is so wide and large, it actually does sufficiently provide additional storage in those units. And those are indicated with this sort of just slightly lighter shade of orange. So you can see there's 4 here, and then there's 1 on this block as well. So the green parking spaces indicate the guest parking within block 14. So the parallel spaces, extremely deep. They're about 29 feet wide, and then they are striped as being 7 foot wide, but they can actually extend out into that location and have some over a little bit of a shoulder before there's any conflict in that location. And then these are the 4 inline spaces on this block, and then 2 additional down here that exceed the guest parking for that location. As far as accessibility goes, there is not a specific designation for an ADA spot or an ADA unit, or I'm sorry, an ADA parking spot, but there are several accessible units. These are these end units here on the 4plexes. These are actually accessible units. They're at what's called a Type B visible unit, which achieves 3 points for the Title IX Colorado Revised Statute accessibility requirements. There's a certain number of points that you have to achieve for attached product. And then these units here and these units here all have a 0-step entrance, as well as a visitable first floor powder room, which meets the requirements for the Title IX as well. So as far as accessibility goes, this is an accessible route here to the mail kiosk, and then this continues to be an accessible route here to get you, and then all the accessible routes around the perimeter of the site accommodate for ADA accessibility, including around the perimeter of block 26. That's one of the reasons why you know, the topography kind of has to happen gradually around the perimeter, and so we can't take up as much within the site itself. But yeah, then there are stairs here, and then there's stairs leading up to these individual units here. So the accessibility has kind of been addressed that way. Did that answer your question as far as?
It does, thank you. And would you say the additional setback that you're requesting would assist in any of the accessibility at all, or does it not play a role at all?
Not really, just because these units here are, you know, there's significant steps. There's like 6, 7, 8 steps coming up to the unit. So you really can't get a ramp to achieve that. It'd have to kind of be a switchback. It's more just to get a manageable grade, that doesn't, you know, just turn into a sheer, gigantic retaining wall. We're kind of terracing it in there and accommodating for some landscaping opportunities as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A quick question, follow-up. Steve, is there parking on the streets all around? Is that,
Yes, there is,
Okay.
yeah.
any other?
I just had a few comments. Mr. Garcia, thank you very much for your presentation, and Stephen Williams, that was fantastic as well. I'd just like to echo my colleagues' comments about the height restrictions in the town center, in that Thrive Builders went to the extent of hiring another architect to work in inches instead of feet to keep these structures as low as possible, but still have, you know, the height inside the home that you need, to still be able to get the solar profile that you need. You really took the time and spent the money to figure that out. And so I applaud you for that. So I wanted to echo my colleagues' sentiment about that, because as we go along with this development, as other builders and other developers come in to build parts of the development, everyone's going to want to take an inch and push this a little bit further and push that a little bit further. And to be able to turn back and say, well, look what Thrive did. Why don't you go back to your architects and people and really look at this and come up with a different solution than adding 4 feet to the top of your structure, or, you know, whether we're measuring from top of foundation to the highest point of the structure. I understand the topography here is very tricky, especially in lot 26, but I'd like to applaud you for that, and to, you know, let the other builders that come into the town of Superior recognize that you know, we're just not going to let people just run amok with the heights, because it's very important. There's view corridors and everything from Waterford and the rest of the town center is very important to us.
Mhm.
So thank you for paying so close attention to that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate the feedback.
Anyone else? And so just so I'm clear, you were looking at 35 feet in that last view we had. Can you pull that slide up again?
Sure.
To the one with the flat roof and the. And is that only in lot 26, or is that in 14 also?
It's everything in sort of this darker orange. So these would all be the 35-foot 2-inch building heights. And I believe you're referring to this one?
Yeah. I'm just having a hard time seeing the max height. It's from this angle.
Right. So it's this sort of dashed line here.
So that's at 32.
Correct.
And then that's 35. Okay, to
Yes.
the third one there.
So
Okay,
that's that
got
kind
it.
of additional
Okay.
dimension there.
Yeah, I just can't read the numbers. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And it, you can definitely zoom in a little bit more. See if this helps. So effectively, what you're able to accomplish, I mean, these are actually a little bit, these heights here are consistent with the flat roof of what we just see the market. I don't know if you're able to notice in the narrative that I submitted, but you know, Wonderland Homes, Remington Homes, the other two builders within the community, just kind of the floor plate heights that they're building to, as well as even, you know, some of the higher end local apartment complexes. I mean, it's just kind of what the market expects at this point. And we really see some benefits to, you know, just the added foot, you know, so an actual 9-foot first floor, 10-foot second floor. This is really where we envision, or see from our past experience in building these homes, where the most volume, the most living goes on. So that's your kitchen and your living room, and your outdoor second floor deck, and then we'd love to have higher roof pitches, and we've tried to kind of add to the volume with our design by vaulting some of that space and taking advantages. It adds cost, but we do respect that we're trying to minimize any projection above that 32-foot height limit. So those are kind of some of the things that we looked at doing.
All right, thank you.
So just to add a little bit more context to that, so the stack flat product really just has like an entrance at the main level and a garage. So that's why you see the discrepancy between floors 1 and 2. Jay mentioned that the maximum floor plate to ceiling height is on the main level. So that's your living area with your kitchen and your living area, and then the bedrooms are up top. But that first floor is really just for your garage and for like kind of an entryway in this product because it's fairly shallow.
All right. Anything else? All right.
And, well, just one other thing, Mr. Garcia, you said you had materials for us,
Yes,
exterior
absolutely.
materials. And
Yeah, we've got a material board over here. So, the actual sample material board. There's the white stone, which is kind of a really interesting profile. So a bit of a mixed texture and then smooth stone profile. So it really adds some character at the entrance. And we've really tried to focus that on the key areas where the homeowner will.
Can you hear him, Phyllis, or does he need to go back to the mic?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Okay.
So I was just referring to the stacked stone, the mixed texture profile, which we've seen in application, and it's really beautiful. It's extremely well done, and we're offering a couple of different colors that blend well within kind of the overall color scheme that we've established here. And so this is my color consultant, Rick Overby. He's with Stella Color and Design. You did, was it Wonderland?
Yeah, we developed the Wonderland color palette as well around here.
Which I think is extremely successful. So these are the actual paint chips to give you a true representation of the colors themselves.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, if there's nothing else, I'll entertain public comment on this public hearing. Is there anybody who'd like to come up and speak? Joe? Almost no introduction needed.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Joe Sorelli. I live at 987 East Carville Place in Superior. And I've got a few comments about the project. Number one, I was quite surprised when this first came to my attention, which was only recently. I didn't come to the concept plans or anything like that, but I had always expected as the downtown moved south that we would be moving to more single-family type homes, and that apparently is not happening. If these are within the design guidelines, that's fine. But the result of this is that you end up with a wall of buildings across the southern portion of the downtown, which makes the heights of the buildings all the more important because you're not going to see through. And what I saw in the 3D is basically a wall of buildings that was eliminating the Front Range from anybody south of downtown. That's somewhat surprising. I understand the comment that the view shed is still protected. Need to understand that view shed, if you're talking about the promised protection of the site of Long's Peak, that's the highest point along the view from the south. Many people don't get a view of Long's Peak anyway if there are trees in the way, so you grasp whatever little pieces of Front Range are left, and anyway, that a wall of buildings eliminates that. So my request, and really my emphatic request, is that the whole south portion of this downtown not entertain any height exemptions, and that the max height of 32 feet be maintained. There are several places where that 3 or actually 4 foot, if depending on how you're measuring it, increase in height can be very significant to any other views in the area. And this being, to my knowledge, the first final development plan coming into the southern portion of the downtown, to open it up with any height exemptions to start with sets a really horrible precedent. Even if you're talking about what you think is a small, it's not small to, depending upon where you're situated, it's not a small change. 32 feet was what was planned in the design guidelines. I think that's amounting to a 2-story house with a basement or walkout or whatever. And I think that is what I personally would request that you stay with, and I think it would be important. Particularly also, you mentioned the topography. As you know, at the south of the downtown, the topography of the homes that exist go downhill, while the topography of the downtown part goes uphill. So it's, you know, those that are further east are looking from a downhill view towards an uphill configuration of homes. So there's more to the view corridor than just what's at the far homes on the far west side of the portion. So anyway, this was all, the design guidelines were conceived, and I request that we stick to them. And if these homes otherwise fit within it, fine.
Thank you. Anyone else have a public comment? Okay, since we have none, is there any more questions before I close the public hearing? For the applicant or for staff? We can have discussion afterwards, and only clarification from staff on things after I close this. Okay. Everybody good? All right. Public hearing's closed. And it's time for discussion. Anybody like to start? I will, if you want. Sure. Yeah, when I saw the 3D view, I was a little surprised. It is just a wall of buildings that the homes up in Rock Creek are going to be facing. I agree with Mr. Sorelli. I had in my head that as this town center came out, it was going to go down, and it's not. It's going up, and that's, I mean, that really did surprise me. I do understand that's the guidelines, but 32 feet is typically a 2-story building, a 2-story home, right? Where the peaks are hitting 32 feet. You've got slopes and other things that help guide that, and now all of a sudden we go to 35 feet, and you create a wall at 32 feet, right? You're just a dead-on wall. So to me, I feel like the intent with our design guidelines was not to create this wall of buildings on the southern edge of this center, and to allow even a 3-foot height increase like that is I mean, I guess they can still put a 3-story in there and make it look like a wall of homes. I just don't believe that was the intent. I don't think that's what we had in mind when we were thinking about downtown. And I went through, you know, the years and years and years of design planning and looking at all this. You know, everybody talked about, you know, 4 or 5 stories downtown, down to 2 stories as you kind of went out into the rest of town. And now all of a sudden we're building 4-story, 3-story, 4-story buildings. So I am deeply concerned about that. Other than that, I love what I see. I love what Thrive is proposing. You know, they look great. Energy efficiency is awesome. I'm just not thrilled about a wall of homes along that southern edge, and it's going to continue. And it's, you know, we're not done, and the slope is going up. And you know, if we approve a height increase here, he's right. That starts to set a precedence, and we can't say no to the next person that does it, right? So those are my thoughts.
So my response to the wall of homes would be that there is quite a variation in the pitch of the roof for each of the buildings. I don't think that it's one solid pitch. I think if they were going with the flat roof that's depicted there on the left, then it is a wall of just a wall of or just a building wall. I think just going with a pitched roof and different elevations, different angled pitches, and each of the elevations that were shown earlier, I think it does create some breaks and some visual breaks to the west. So I don't think it's necessarily a solid wall, and I don't want it to sound like it is. I mean, it would be nice to go back and look at a couple of those. I don't want to get my plans out and look at them, but I know that the roof pitches, the variations probably provide a little bit of a visual break. And it's obviously not the visual break that the 10 feet between the house, between houses might provide. But I think that the roof pitches themselves will create some.
On the 3D view, kind of, I mean, that's what shocked me when we were on the southern edge of the existing homes and looking down. And I didn't see much variation in roof height or pitch, but I don't know if we can bring the 3D up again. Is that okay to do if we want to?
I don't have a great deal of concern related to the height. I completely respect, the intent of the annexation agreement, and I feel like that needs to be honored wholeheartedly in every intent that was when it was established and in setting the expectations for folks. I have a little bit of concern just with the way we're measuring height, that we really dial in what that actual height's going to be so that we're reflecting the numbers honestly. So when you get to the town board, wherever we land on height, from exterior grade is what the impact feels like. So I think that should be the way that height is presented.
Excuse me, can I copy between?
Yeah.
I was actually trying to provide you the option to look at the 35 versus the 32. Almost there. If you guys would like to see that.
I would agree with that, Commissioner Ritchie. I think, though, maybe we're a little bit past that because there's products that have already been built. There are homes that have already been erected based on that measurement standard. And it kind of disturbs me when one applicant can come in after another and say, well, this applicant built to this standard, so why can't we, kind of a thing. So that piece disturbs me, and I think that as we move forward, maybe we need to try and find a way to get a little bit more control of that piece. But I do I do agree with you that the height doesn't disturb me that much either. I think that what we're talking about is also having a 10% administrative relief, which this fits well within that relief. So.
Yeah, I'll just echo what the last two commissioners said, is that the height doesn't really bother me, especially because of the increase in grade as we're going up. I think this was approved, and whether we agree with it or not, now we have what we have. And when the homes get put in there, I don't think you're going to be able to see this development.
Well, yeah, that's probably my concern, right? Because now the next group comes in, they build on a higher plane, they want to go 35 feet. I mean, it's 32 feet for a reason, right? It's not 35 feet so that you can get good, solid, sellable 3 stories. It's 32 feet so you can get a good, sellable 2-story home. And I'm struggling with the need to add 3 feet in order to accommodate a tall home in order to get more homes, right? I know I'm going to get a reputation here of just being against residential development, but every single development that has come before us, they want to go higher, they want to go taller, they want to squeeze more homes in a smaller area, and I'm kind of just tired of it, right? I mean, we set these guidelines. It's 32 feet, so build a nice home at 32 feet, and it's probably going to be 2 stories, and you're probably not going to get as many homes, right? You're going to get less homes. So if the business doesn't make sense, then maybe they don't build homes here. I'm getting frustrated that every developer that comes forward here is asking for additional height or additional width or less this or more of that. And we spent a considerable amount of time thinking about this 10 years ago and 15 years ago. And Mr. Sorelli sat on the planning commission. He went through a lot of this in the late 90s and the early 2000s, and it was not the intent that we would have 4-story, 3-story, 4-story buildings across this entire town center. I have no doubt in my mind. And when we start just adding feet, then we're allowing a developer to now create a very comfortable 3-story home, narrower, so he can get 40 in instead of 32. And that's my frustration. And I'm not against development. I'm against developers continuing to want to just push the envelope and get more than what we set our standards to accommodate. So
I agree with Mr. Stewart that I don't think just because we approve this variance that the people who build the next one get the automatic 3-foot increase, especially as you go up the hill. It becomes, because I just think as you're going down that slope, what we do here, if you stay at the 32 in the next one, you won't see this development. I don't think you'll see this development based on what I saw in the 3D view. Now, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But that's what so I don't think they just get the extra 3 feet. And I think that's when we do have to be more stringent and say you don't get it because it does impair the view.
I don't think,
Yeah.
Can I just ask a question? Chase, what are we looking at there? Are those the Remington homes?
Yeah, the kind of lighter, the kind of pinkish ones are, these are those ones that I was just hogging on and off that would be the 32-foot kind of Remington style ones.
And can you move over towards the west more and up above them? And down, yeah. Yeah. So again, assuming that's accurate, you don't see that development. And was that development at 30, is the Thrive development at 32 or 35?
Correct, 32.
32. Can you move it to 35?
Yeah, I'm actually, it's
You're
processing
doing it,
behind
okay.
this. If you guys just talk a little
Yeah,
bit
and
amongst
so-
yourself, maybe we'll have that ready.
Actually, while we're waiting, can we go down into the development more towards the east, almost at Highway 36, looking back towards the west?
So what wasn't included in my staff recommendation or my staff memo was any analysis on, or I guess context on the amount of units that were also approved in the PD for this area of the town center. And that's starting to kind of be a little bit more visualized with like certain applications and discussions that have occurred for the southern part of Planning Area 3. So we've had a company come in that's interested in that property that kind of clarified how many units they can build. You know, they're allowed up to 300 plus more units in that area, and based on our allowance for in the PD, I think it's 650 or 700 in one area, and then the other number in Planning Area 2. And the product type does shift a little bit to single family, but it's not as much as one might have expected in order to get that amount of density. And the developer was very strategic, I guess, in the density that they're requesting, and that's something like from a planning perspective that folks need to kind of understand as well, is that the density of this development residentially drives the potential success for the commercial core area. And that's what we hear all the time when we have commercial folks come in, is that, well, you know, we'll come in as soon as we have more rooftops in the area, and so it's all interrelated to some degree. And I didn't provide, you know, that context, and I actually have seen it a little bit more with, you know, some discussions on future development south of here, so south and east of here.
Oh, and I'd love to see us go through a PD amendment then, and let's go ahead and make the change that's necessary to go across the entire. I mean, if 35 feet's what it needs to be, then
I'm
by
not
God,
saying that
let's
it
do
needs
it.
to be
You know,
taller.
it's
Not at all.
just-
That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying what the density is.
Yeah, I mean, if
Wasn't a
that's what it takes
response
to
to
do
the height.
this, then take it through a public process, and let's decide that 35 feet or 40 feet or whatever the hell it is, and let's let residents come down and talk to us. And I mean, I'm just getting frustrated because I keep everything that's come before us has been exceptions and
I understand.
and increases, and you know, it's just sorry.
No, and on the flip side, I think to Stephen's point, this is not anywhere near as dense as it could be. This is not anywhere near as many units as this development could have. And so to say that I think we're cramming in a lot of homes and that wasn't the intent, I don't think that, I don't agree with that statement. I feel like this is what, you know, this many homes in this area is what was intended. And those things are difficult to communicate when you're going through these discussions, you know, and it's hard to visualize and things like that. But I don't think we should amend the PD. I like the idea that we can review these kind of exceptions on a case-by-case basis. We can talk about them on their merits. I would never want to open this whole can of worms up and say 35 feet across the board. I think in this particular location, given the context of the grades in this site, I don't see a negative impact that would result from approving additional height in this context. But I completely agree. I don't want this to, in any way, I don't want any future developer to come in and feel that we're establishing precedent that we would consider height exceptions for properties further to the south.
And that's certainly not any expectation we're setting with our conversations with those developers future to the south. So,
Yeah. Well, and also to reiterate the interest and concern that Thrive took in adjusting these drawings. Yes, they're asking for an exception, but they're not going as far as they could, and they know that's not what we wanted. That's not what we want for our town. And I have no problem in saying no to other builders who are not as concerned about our town as we are.
do you have your? Have we waited long enough?
Oh, so you guys, sorry, I was waiting to finish the discussion.
Oh, you weren't working?
No, well, it's been processing. I wasn't wasting time.
So I get to get back up on my high horse again and,
Yes.
and keep going.
I think he gets paid by the minute.
No, and then the context, I guess, you know, kind of expanding on my response to an earlier comment about our review of the height. It seems contextual. Like getting it in a 3D model really helps to kind of to see that, but you see it in relation to Block 25 to the north, and even like the setbacks. So, you know, Discovery Parkway is going to be a fairly busy street in and out of there, and they're going to have some homes that are fronting that street, and Thrive's will be set back a little bit further, and I think that that's appropriate. Their setbacks are actually much more generous than what we saw on Block 13, so they're further from the right-of-way, which will also from, you know, if you're concerned about what this is going to look like from a pedestrian scale walking through the neighborhood, it will actually appear shorter than it would if it was right on, like at a 2-foot setback as well, so.
It won't appear shorter than what I thought I designed and worked on 10 years ago when we looked at all this. It's just so different than what I ever imagined this to be, and anybody I ever talked to about this, you know, what town center was going to look like and how it was going to work. And the way we discussed it, you know, 10, 15 years ago as we were, you know, reviewing these plans and thinking about all this was not 3- and 4-story buildings across the entire parcel. It just wasn't. So I'm, you know, I mean, I'm just struggling because I am really confident, and I you can talk to any one of 20 of us who's sat through this 15 years ago, and 4-story buildings for residential homes was not what was.
But
Nobody
was-
had that in mind.
Right.
You know, so I'm struggling when.
But that's
Okay,
only
let's go
allowed-
ahead and add
it's
another
only
3
allowed
feet
within,
to a height elevation that
4
we
stories
probably
not
didn't
allo-
want anyway.
4 stories
So-
not allowed in
but-
planning area 3. In much areas of planning area 3, there's a few blocks that have already.
No, but I mean the ones that were built in planning
Right.
area with that, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, but that was-
the way this was all described was
Right.
not like this. I
But
mean,
the
I know
F-
it's all changed, and
Right,
we're.
but the
we're-
PD that was approved allows
Yes,
for
yeah.
up to 5 stories in those areas, so.
Yeah. So, and we're getting it, so. It's, but,
Well, I suppose I better throw in here.
Sure,
Just so I don't feel left out. Can't put me out to pasture entirely yet. This would be a lot easier analysis if Thrive had done a poor job, but Thrive did an excellent job. So that makes it difficult. And I commend you all on the care that you've taken and put into this. It really shows, and I appreciate that. All that said, I mean, I hear what Mr. Sorelli is saying and what Commissioner McCool are saying, and you know, I share those same concerns. At some point, we have to draw the line in the sand and say, you know, 32 means 32, period. And you know, if there was ever a case to go beyond that, this is probably the case in my judgment. But I'm starting to come around to Bob's way of thinking on this. It seems like we are continually pressed to bend a little bit further with each application. And I'm concerned that with the same issues that Mr. Sorelli and Mr. McCool are raising, it's starting to feel like an urban center. And I don't think that was the vision from what I can recall. And I'd really like to see us stick with the standards as best we can. I'd really like to see us move toward, you know, the original idea of, you know, you have somewhat of a condensed urban core, but then you have that surrounded by single-family homes. And I don't know if it's too late for us to get there or not. I don't know if the 32-foot height restriction is the way to make that happen, but that's where I'm leaning. I wish it wasn't Thrive that we were dealing with here, because these guys, if anybody deserves the benefit of the doubt, I think it's them. But I'm just getting very, very concerned about the leniency that we're continually asked to apply.
Sorry, some technical difficulties.
No pressure.
It's okay. I don't know how much it will impact our
Yeah.
decisions. Maybe it's worth waiting for, but.
And, excuse me, I agree with Commissioner Sautel's frustrations and Commissioner McCool's. It does appear that, you know, every application we get is for, it includes exceptions, especially to the height. And the further we get out toward the corner of the development there, toward Carville, toward Mr. Sigarelli's property, and that whole section, it should really loosen up. I mean, that was the whole plan, once you get out to that point. So for staff's information, and I think for the commissioners, I think we could look forward to that. And if there's a 4-story townhome coming down the pipe, I think they may need to look somewhere else.
Stephen, do you have time for some dumb questions?
Sure.
From me?
I'm here for it.
So, going out from where this development is situated.
Phyllis, can you hit the button one more time?
As we move further to the south and to the east,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, are we looking at more of these, 32 plus or minus foot height restricted buildings? Are we looking at the potential for 3-story buildings right up to the edge of the development?
So the height restriction, all of this is 32 feet. This is 32 feet. This is what we're talking about here, at 32 feet. There'll be a row of, I assume, something fairly similar to what's being proposed here, which we just got an application for. So this is a Remington product. Chase used the model that they've done within Block 13, but from my understanding, it's going to be a different housing type. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but it should be a different housing type here. But one of the things, I guess, to clarify is that, I understand that everyone has their own kind of vision for the town center, but when we get applications, we work within the confines of the standards that were established by the PD. And some of those standards allow for, like when you saw Chase's model here, those houses don't have a ton of separation. So they have a minimum of 3 feet to a property line in order to meet building code and allow for a window, and then that has to be replicated on the other side of it. And that's a standard we're gonna hold as the minimum. That's what we did on Block 13. But it doesn't give you a lot of breaks in buildings, especially when they're larger. So even if you're gonna have a 2-story structure that meets the 32-foot height requirement, it might be something, 40 feet wide or 50 feet wide, depending on how they're gonna plat the widths of their lots, and not have a lot of side setback. That's kind of what we saw for the Discovery application recently, and that was with the townhome product, so it was even wider because they were attached, or a duplex product, excuse me. But I think to answer your point, we've only had one discussion on this, and it was just kind of a contextual concept level conversation, and we told them that there's not going to be leniency for something taller out there. So they need, other than maybe up here along the freeway, and then they would need to kind of, clarify that discussion as, something that actually does some sound mitigation for the rest of the development. But that, right now is a flex designated space. That's why it's not yellow. And then the exchange, if you guys recall, was for this road to be realigned to be out of the Tract H area and further 25 feet, I think 25 or 50 feet further north to get it out of that area. So that connection would have to shift should that connection actually be approved to Rock Creek to the south in that corner. So those were kind of the exchanges, but I would expect that, nothing in our code stipulates, a mix of, what mix of single-family homes versus attached products. And I think that attached products are what probably the density allowance out here will probably drive a certain number of attached products. And then you're going to get kind of a similar size footprint. So Thrive's, 3 plexes aren't that wide. They're going to be comparable to some single-family homes. They're narrower than what was approved for the duplex on Discovery Office Park. Not as wide. So those things are all just, they're all to be determined until we actually get an application. But I understand that the intent, and that was kind of that's my understanding too. So it's not anywhere in the design guidelines that I think I know. I just know it from hearing conversations from, people that have been around a lot longer than I have. about, you know, that we envision single-family homes, and I believe Trustee Dozell has said it a number of times when we were at the PD amendment phase. And I still think you're going to get that along the southern edge, and, you know, maybe a little bit to the north. But that is what's proposed on this side of Block 26, is a detached single-family product, as well as wrapping all of Block 27. And until we get anything formally within these other blocks, this configuration may all change too. And the other thing, I guess, to give you some context of, you know, it's an awkwardly shaped plan development to begin with, and then we get some awkwardly shaped blocks. These blocks that are actually square and rectangular are a lot more efficient to develop, so you're able to actually get a higher density on those blocks just because of the geometry of it. You're going to end up with more open space areas. How usable they are on a slope like this kind of remains to be seen. But we're going to get more open space areas and more landscaped areas on the more awkwardly shaped lots, but they're also not going to be, may not be usable. So, Chase, you got an update? I'm running out of airtime. Do you guys want to see it, or
I was having a hard
do you
time
want?
getting them to toggle.
Okay.
I'm too tired. I'm clearly misspelling something.
Oh, it's probably, it's probably not critical for the.
Do you have any other questions for me? You said you, I mean, it kind of went on and on.
Thanks.
Off your first.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I did get it. It's compelling.
Do I hit it
No
once
one's,
or
no
twice?
one's
Can you
push
So-
program at a public hearing.
So on the 32 feet, the variance of 10%, where does that 10% come from?
So, well, we, I don't think that staff would apply an administrative variance out here. That's why we've taken it to the board. But there is a provision in our code that we don't have to go back to a planning commission or a board meeting if a proposal is within 10% of a requirement. So whatever was approved originally. So that's kind of where they came up with that number, but that's not anything that we've, you know, directed that you need to get within a 10% allowance or anything like that. It's just a number that's within our code for administrative amendments to applications. That's kind of a tolerance without having to have a full-blown variance or something.
Do you know
but
where that's at? I'd kind of like to review it.
It's in a
at some
very,
point, but-
yeah, I can send it to you. It's a
Okay.
very convoluted, it references patio outdoor spaces for restaurants too. It's a strange like section in our code, but it's with what's the town manager's allowed to do administratively. So, but it's not anything that we would apply here, and that's why we require them to take it forward with that request as part of their FDP review.
And Stephen, why wouldn't you guys support, it's within your realm to support
Within our
it.
realm, but it's because of the sensitivity of the issue and the neighborhood involved, and the fact that, you know, 32 was a pretty clear height requirement that was discussed, so we wanted to go through this whole process publicly rather than deal with it administratively.
But
Plus, they're
staff
going
does
through the-
support, has looked at this proposal, and, you know, site context-wise, I don't think that there's going to be I think Commissioner Ritchie said it well, I don't think there's going to be a negative offsite impact based on this within the context of the development and the surrounding development that's expected.
Kind of had to rush it a little bit, so we lost a little bit of the fidelity on one of the versions. But this is the 32 one that you guys just saw, and then this is the 35. So that's what kind of that 10% difference looks like.
I don't see how that isn't a wall, but.
But it's a wall
Yeah.
no matter what.
Yeah.
Can you put the other bill?
Can you put the other there?
Yeah, I
those
can
would
see
be the-
contextually,
right.
but that's not approved yet. I mean, this
Right,
is.
it's not
Nope.
approved, but if we
Yeah.
can get single-family homes in there with reasonable setbacks on the side, they kind of mirror Waterford.
So that's
And-
what's being proposed that's what's coming forward to us for the
I
rest
would
of lot
assume so. I haven't
26.
looked at the application yet.
Okay.
So.
And I'd characterize this as my interpretation of kind of what's been moving that way.
Thank you for taking the time to do that.
Yeah, appreciate it.
And so you're basically at 6 foot or eye height from the
Yeah, so.
the open space, so land keeps sloping back up towards the Waterford properties.
That's the Discovery Park office
Yeah.
building.
Yeah.
So up here in the top left
Yeah,
corner.
I see
if you
that,
could read
it's
it,
5.6.
5.8 or something.
5.8.
5.8.
But I'm saying if you backed up all the way into the neighborhood, into the, well, I guess you are almost right up against the houses.
If you went to
Okay.
their first floor,
Yeah.
second floor, you're gonna get a totally different view.
Yeah. So if you went up another 8 feet, then that gives you a view from the second floor.
But also,
Or
Mr.
just even that.
Mr. Sorelli's concern is from further
Yeah.
to the east.
Yeah, can you go
east.
further east?
Waterford has nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
Yeah, as this topography falls away, I think that's where the
Right, yeah.
potential
Right.
impact will play out.
Very close to 36. And actually down the hill, right, so into the new neighborhood.
Yeah, there you go, kind of that corner.
Yeah. Feel that walk. I've already got a headache.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you toggling between
Yeah, so
32 and
look
35?
Right
Yeah.
here,
Mhm.
so that's the 35, and that's 32.
Can you put the Remington product in?
As I was saying, there's gonna be more
That's there.
development.
And
So,
it's kind of purpley
you know,
ones.
before we get to the board meeting, if you want to have something that's a 3D rendering of, you know, some development within this other area, but it's not platted yet. So the reason we did it for Remington, directly south, was because we have some context of what's coming in on that. We don't on this, but if you want to see something that shows what that development potential could be, if it was just linear, have it for the board, we can get Chase to work
Yeah.
on that, but.
If it was blocked out, I mean, just chunked out, it doesn't even need to be.
Right.
But
And Chase, were you assuming 32 feet on the Remington product there?
I was, yeah.
Anybody want to take a crack at a motion? Or is there any more comment? I have it printed if
Thanks,
somebody wants
Chase.
to take it.
Sure, I could probably. Are we ready?
I think so, yeah.
The Town of Superior Planning Commission Resolution Number PC-4, Series 2018. A resolution of the Planning Commission of the Town of Superior recommending approval of major final subdivision plats and final development plans for Lot 1, Block 14, and a portion of Lot 1. Block 26 of the Superior Town Center, case numbers FP-2018-03, FP-2018-04, and FDP-2018-03.
Have a motion on the table? Any-
For discussion, does anybody want to add language regarding our support for the height amendment? Or exception?
Because that's not in here, right?
Nope.
No.
It is not in there.
All right, I'll throw out a friendly amendment to include in the resolution support from the planning commission to allow the additional height as requested, although hopefully as refined through additional study to further clarify what the actual height will be.
All right, we have a motion with an amendment.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a second. All in favor? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4, and opposed? 2 opposed.
Deputies.
Oh, sorry. Satella McCool opposed.
Okay. That's good.
Is that good?
Okay.
And so the motion passes. Thank you. All right, so we have staff announcements.
Just one that we'll have, well, I guess maybe two, but I will have a meeting on the 20th? No, the 17th, which will have Clarion here to kind of kick off our Northwest outreach effort. We've had a new hire recently, a budget analyst or a management analyst. She's been doing more of the coordination with them in order to kind of line up the subsequent public outreach meetings. So all of those details, she'll be at that meeting as well with me. And we'll kind of outline all those details. If there's anything I can send you in advance, I will, ahead of that meeting. But we will have that meeting on the 17th. And then the only other announcement, I guess, is that next Monday, the electric vehicle Tesla application for across the street goes forward to the town board for consideration. So we'll let you know if you don't attend that meeting how that shakes out as well.
That's good. Anybody have any questions for Stephen?
Do not.
All right. I think we're all done.
All right.